Hey guys, welcome back to the latest episode of the Growing a Dental Practice podcast. I'm your host, Mike Hennon from Patient Boost. In today's episode, I'm joined by Kevin Violick, manager at Botwinick Company, an accounting firm located in New Jersey. As an experienced proactive dental CPA, Kevin helps dentists better understand their money, taxes, and cash flow. Welcome to the show, Kevin. Thanks for joining me today. How are you?
Great. Thanks, Mike. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time. As I mentioned right before we kicked off, we're just coming off of a 10/15 tax deadline, which, the last couple of weeks have been absolute whirlwind. So it's nice to have a bit of a reprieve this week and kind of take a step back for a minute.
Excellent. Yeah, you were describing like what you're up to before, and I was like, and I know I've got friends that are accountants, and I don't know whether it's the same, but like there's always that deadline in the year where it's just crazy, and you never see them for like weeks on end, and it's just like, yeah, just mad.
Tax season, busy season is usually confined to a few months out of the year, but it seems with the ever-changing laws, rules, regulations, and whatnot, it seems that it kind of is an ongoing busy season throughout the course of the year. But it kind of keeps you on your toes, keeps things interesting, and it's exciting. So
Good man, perfect. And do you ever like schedule a vacation after, like, or do you pre-plan on a vacation, or you just can't be sure?
I always try to do one big vacation after tax season. With the last couple of years being COVID, this past summer has kind of been like a whirlwind of vacations, weddings, birthdays, all kind of, 3 years of life events all kind of consolidated into one summer. So it's been pretty busy this summer, but I've had an awesome time.
Yeah, fantastic. That's awesome, man. So before we dig into accounting and what you do for your dental clients, I first want to pick into like, what's your background? How did you get to this point? And just for your reference, when I ask you a question, I may actually increase you to the full screen, so it may look like you're talking to yourself. But please just continue and
Sure.
just continue to go. So yeah, so tell me about you and what's your background.
Sure. So, as you had already mentioned, I'm a CPA. I started my career at one of the big four accounting firms. I was in their assurance practice. So I was doing audits for primarily public companies in the manufacturing and chemical space. Um, Growing up, I was surrounded, my family were small business owners and entrepreneurs. So I always seemed to gravitate towards those small business owners and entrepreneurs. I felt that I was more of a key piece of the puzzle versus at a bigger firm. So in the last 5 years, I actually transitioned to Botwinick Company, whereby I've been dealing more on the taxation side, the accounting taxation side, dealing with the smaller to mid-size businesses.
Fantastic. And you have got quite a large book of dental clients. So how did you get into the dental space?
So when I first started here at Botwinick, there was already a large concentration of dentists. So naturally over time, I tended to gravitate towards them. I really enjoyed working alongside dentists. I always found that the dentists are very appreciative of your input and very receptive to feedback. And you know over time you become a trusted advisor to the dentists, and just slowly over time I just kind of gravitated towards them. And the irony of this all is that I actually dislike going to the dentist. So I like working with them professionally, but I don't like going to the dentist myself. So go
Okay.
figure.
So yeah, yeah. Has has it? So you still don't enjoy going to the dentist? Has it improved slightly because you talk to dentists more often? Like, have you got better, or do you think it's the same?
It's funny because every time I go to my dentist, we always start with the first 10 to 15 minutes talking about accounting, taxes, COVID related grants, PPP. And she just loves to pick my brain. And it's great because, she understands, the accounting. I understand the dental side. So we have a nice little back and forth every time we go there.
Okay. And does that kind of ease you into the actual examination?
Not quite, but again, it's something with the poking and the prodding and the cleaning that
Yeah, that's fair. It's
but
not an uncommon not an uncommon thing to be a bit, a bit apprehensive about going to the dentist. And yeah, no, it's fantastic.
Do you
So
like going to the dentist?
uh, I probably don't go as much as I should. I don't mind going, but yeah, I probably don't go as much as I should, despite the fact that I'm in dentistry.
Right.
So anyone listening is probably gonna, almost maybe have a heart attack that I don't go as often as I should.
Listen,
Although
I don't know if anyone's overly excited to go to the dentist, even if it's just for, their 6-month hygiene.
yeah. So I've been for a hygiene appointment and also my dental checkup this year. So I have ticked those boxes. So I think my next one's in January. So yeah, no, I'm on track for it. So that's all good.
Good, good.
So we established that you got into accounting. You got drawn towards the small business owner. You joined your current firm and they had a large pool of dentists. When should a dentist actually hire a dentist, an accountant? Like, it's
So
not just for owners, is it?
I get that question all the time, and my response is as soon as you're in the workforce, especially, once you're out of dental school, you're working as an associate in a practice. And the reason I say that is because an accountant to many people is a very a trustworthy, confident person, right? So you want to work with someone you're comfortable with, you get along with, and you ultimately have, trust and faith in. And, hopefully, it's someone you stay with throughout the course of your career. That's why it's good early on to find that person that you trust and enjoy working along with. Because I have come across I have come across dentist or any other client who, they inherited their accountant from their parents or the previous practice owner. And a lot of times they don't have the best working relationship, I should say, with them. And it really should be a transparent and open relationship you have.
Oh, fantastic. And so as an associate should take on an accountant. Obviously, a practice should have their own accountant. Is there, and you're a great judge of this, is there a big difference between hiring like a general accountant versus a dental accountant for dentists?
So it's funny because I have all my buddies seem to be accountants. And, when I say, we are a very dental centric firm, they say, well, hey, we have dental clients, we're CPAs as well. So what makes you any different than us? And my response is always, it's our understanding of the industry, right? If you're looking for someone just to do your bookkeeping and prepare financial statements and do the tax return at year end, yes, any CPA can do that. But if you're really looking for someone who could provide insight, raise questions, identify red flags, and truly understand your business, that's when I think a dental specific CPA can be very value added. I think about it from, my perspective when I speak with, when we're talking about accounting, right? And I'm speaking to someone who is an accountant versus someone who's not. It's very easy to tell who really knows what they're speaking about and who doesn't. So if I put myself in the shoes of a dentist, I want, my accountant to know what a CEREC machine is. I want my accountant to know how much it costs. I want my accountant to know where my target salary should be within. I want my accountant to know where my dental supply range should be in, and things of that. And again, I think, having that greater insight provides more value add than, any other typical CPA on the block may be able to offer.
Fantastic. Yeah, I like that. I think I've had it before where you can almost, because you've got such an experience with like the percentage that a dentist should be spending on overheads and salary and supplies. You can really pick out kind of where they may be overspending and maybe sort of suggest areas where they could maybe cut back and maybe save some cash.
Correct. I mean, listen, a dentist at the end of the day, they want to focus on dentistry, right? And while some are very involved in the financials of the firm, which I really encourage, every doctor to be involved, sometimes when you're in the weeds, it's hard to take a step back and look at financials holistically and truly understand what the story is really saying. That's where, again, a dental specific CPA comes in. they're kind of those outside set of eyes that can take a look at your financials and kind of point out, hey, you're overspending here, you're underspending here. You need to cut back on salaries, things of that nature. So again, when you have those second set of eyes providing that feedback, that's where the true value is, not the bookkeeping and tax return preparation.
Yeah, fantastic. And that's awesome. You're like, because I guess any bookkeeper can, or any accountant can do the bookkeeping and the tax returns. But, like you say, like those value add things like saving money and putting money in the right places you can't, you won't get that if you're not a dental CPA. That's awesome, man. So a lot of the audience on this show are, either someone thinking about buying and starting a practice, or they've just started or bought a practice themselves. Where can you guys come in terms of supporting the buying of a practice or the starting of a practice?
Sure. So typically, we'll have dentists come to us saying, hey, I'm interested in buying a practice. Can you help, perform some form of due diligence? So by the time it gets to our desk, right, it's already been through a dental broker. There's typically already a price tag attached to that practice. So at that point, what we do is we sit down with the dentist and we review all the financial information of the practice, right? So for example, we'll look at the financial statements, we'll look at historical tax returns, we'll look at the production reports, the collection reports, we'll look at the lease agreement, the fee schedules. And what we do is, we already have a sense as to whether or not the dentist is interested. So at that point, we kind of, kick the tires, do our due diligence, and we essentially formulate a list of questions, red flags, pros, cons, which we then sit with and share with the dentist. And, many a times there's things that come up and the dentist's like, hey, I really didn't see that, or I kind of overlooked that. At that point, we kind of then, the dentist goes back to the broker and kind of tries to vet those questions. And once we get feedback or answers, to our questions, then we make an ultimate decision and kind of weigh in as to, do we feel strongly one way or another as to whether this is a viable practice for them to purchase.
Fantastic. And is there a significant difference between buying a practice and doing a startup?
Yes. So a startup is typically a lot more involved. Again, you're really building from the ground floor up, whereas purchasing a practice, typically the previous doctor will be there for a certain period of time and kind of phase you into that. A build out or a startup is a lot more capital intensive, and there tends to be a little more risk, associated with that. Because again, you're kind of, putting up your own shingle in somewhere that, there wasn't a practice before. So
did you just say shingle?
Yes.
Love it. That's a new. I think I know what you're talking about. Obviously, cash, I guess, is the
like a roof shingle. A shingle on the roof.
Yeah. So I think we're talking about money. No, I love it. Right, continue. Sorry, don't mind me.
So there's a little more risk involved in that. But again, I think if you really do your homework, the due diligence is there. There's a plan, and you've thoroughly vetted your options. That's not to say one option is better or worse than the other. At the end of the day, it's really just doing your homework and making sure the numbers are hard, and you've done your homework.
Yeah, man, perfect. And so if I was an existing client, so imagine I'm an associate,
Mm-hmm.
And I've been working with you for a few years, you know my finances and things like that, and I turn around to you and say, I've got two opportunities. One is a startup, one is a buying practice. Which one would you advise me on? Or, just from which one would you advise me to go down?
So I think it really depends, right? Where the practice is, what geographic location. Are you in a new area where there's a lot of new families moving in, a lot of new development, or are you in a heavily populated area like New Jersey, New York, right, where you could go down any block and probably drive past 5 offices? So I think there's, quantitative factors aside, I think there are a number of qualitative factors as well that kind of play into that decision. And I don't think there's one cookie cutter answer for that question. Again, I think there's a multitude of factors that play into it. But again, that's where having, your professionals in place, and that's not even CPAs, right? So I'm talking, your lawyer, your banker, your financial advisor. You need to have those professionals in place when evaluating those decisions. Because again, I think every professional you develop a relationship with over time brings value-added feedback from each of their respective fields. And I think, all that feedback plays into the ultimate decision as to, how you move forward.
Yeah, fantastic. And to be honest, that's not the first time I've heard of like a core advisory group. So it's usually the CPA, the financial advisor, the attorney is usually involved, and obviously there's just the varying degrees, maybe the practice broker, someone helping you trying to find the practice, or more cases than selling in practice. Is there anyone else in that kind of core group of advisors that a dentist should consider when sort of buying a practice?
Those are the core, I'd say. One other piece of advice, unofficial advice, I guess I would say, is to really speak to other dentists. I found that a lot of times dentists are very closed off when it comes to maybe sharing their pain points or issues that they may be having. One of the reasons, I'm saying that is because every so often we hold dental roundtables whereby we get together with 10 dentists. Sometimes we do it in office, sometimes we go out to a restaurant, and we just put dentists who don't know one another at a table together. And, we kind of start with the speaking point, like, over the last 6 months, what is a pain point each one of you have experienced? And, we'll go around the table, they'll share a pain point, and believe it or not, likely if one of them's having a pain point, half, if not more than half the table is experiencing that same issue. So again, we like to put these things together to help kind of brainstorm ideas and solutions. Again, this kind of goes back to one of your earlier questions about a dental specific CPA, is that, we work with so many dentists. So, we meet with them on a quarterly basis, we review the numbers, and, there's always ongoing conversation. So if there's a problem one person's having, we're hearing it. We're hearing it from a number of different dentists, and it's helpful to other dentists to information share, right? So when you're hearing one thing and a dentist is having this other problem over here, it's reassuring to say, hey, a lot of your peers are experiencing these issues as well, but here's what they're doing, to mitigate or to rectify or correct whatever issue it may be. So again, I think just being open with other dentists in your area, whether it's peers, competitors, at the end of the day, everyone's in the same boat and everyone wants to be successful. And I think the goodwill amongst your peers goes a very long way.
That's a great couple of points there, Kevin. So like we have the same thing where we work with our dental clients. One of them might say they're quite quiet, or phone calls have dropped off, and then we kind of see the same pattern elsewhere, and we can say, look, don't worry, it's not a specific thing to you. It's kind of like a more nationwide trend, and that kind of puts them at ease. And I like the fact that you've said, you almost encourage dentists to kind of speak together or talk to each other. Because a dentist down the road isn't always your competition.
Exactly.
Like, there, especially if you're in like Manhattan or something, there's thousands of potential patients. You can't service them all, and you might be going for different treatments and different types of patients. So you shouldn't really see each other as direct competition.
But I agree. The work is there. The patients are there. A lot of times there's some dentists that are doing one thing right and another might be wrong. And if they're not talking, that information's never being shared. And at the end of the day, information is the key to success, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I keep hearing statistics where there aren't enough doctors to service all the patients. So there is an abundance of opportunity, and so that's awesome, Kevin. So the next thing is, so we've talked about kind of where you can step in and help someone buy a practice.
Mm-hmm.
What are the various different things you guys can do in terms of running the practice? Now you've touched on a few before, but if you had to list them off again, like what areas can you help
Sure.
a
So
practice run?
I'll kind of take you through the life cycle of what we do with the dental clients, starting from the beginning of the year. So typically we start with the nuts and bolts. So what I mean by that is we start with the bookkeeping. every month we perform bank reconciliations, credit card reconciliations, and build out the financial statements. And then what we'll do is on a quarterly basis, we'll have, informal sit downs, whether it's a Zoom, a phone call, they'll pop in and we'll review the financial statements. And what kind of happens in those conversations is, we go through the numbers, we point out any areas of interest to us. Why is this happening? This looks high this month. What's going on here? And, as I said earlier, sometimes the dentists are so focused on, dentistry itself, which they should be, that they don't realize that their dental supplies are off the charts, or, their salaries for the number of ops they have are way too high. So that's when we have those conversations about, maybe scaling back some expenses. It also provides the dentist an opportunity to vet any questions they may be having, concerns. It's funny, a lot of times, people are so concerned with cutting costs and making sure their costs are in check. We actually met with a dentist a few weeks ago who her numbers were great. Her expenses were in line with where we think they should be. And one of her comments to us was, hey, I'm getting a lot of traffic through word of mouth, but I feel like I'm not getting anything from my website, and I don't know how to drive more traffic. So once we start peeling back the layers a little bit, we noticed that she was spending a couple $100s a year in marketing and advertising. So again, sometimes people are so concerned about not spending that sometimes we actually bring to the client like, hey, you should be spending more in this area, right? So that's where we get into the conversations about websites, marketing, SEO, things of that nature. So it really goes both ways, and having these checkpoints on a quarterly basis really helps us stay abreast of what's really going on. I deal with other clients outside the dental space whereby, they don't want to have those conversations. They just want to see what the numbers look like and the tax return done at year end. So when they look at the numbers at year end, you're looking, hindsight, 12 months worth of activity. So at that point, there's really nothing you can do to change those numbers. They essentially are what they are. That's why having these check-ins is important, especially to the dentists, because, we're keeping our thumb on the pulse. And, if there are changes that need to be made, we can make those real time. And we're not kind of sitting in December being like, we should have done this, we should have done that. We should have bought this piece of equipment. We should have invested money into the interior of the practice. So that's kind of the bookkeeping and financial statement prep and the planning. And then come year end, it is, the tax return preparation, which I mentioned. A few months out from year end, we talk about tax minimization strategies. So what I mean by that is if you're sitting on an abundance of cash and you have a wish list of items you like, whether it's a intraoral scanner or a cone beam, we talk about making those investments, and it gives you the ability to increase your expenses and invest in the equipment you think you're going to need. And then after year end, it's really just preparing the tax returns and the personal related returns.
Fantastic. I don't think I've ever heard it in that format, and I love that kind of like, this is kind of like what we do over the year. And I love the fact that you have the check-ins, because my experience of accountants and my perception of accountants is they literally, they literally pop up once a year and kind of just leave you to do your own thing. But I love the fact that you get in and actually provide advice, and that is such a better approach.
I tell every new client, I can only give you proactive feedback if I get it in a timely manner. When I'm looking at it in January for the previous year, I'm just giving you reactive feedback at that point, which does no one any good, and it's not value added.
Fantastic. And you obviously touched on a point where you had a client, kind of she's doing well, and then you noticed that she's not spending any money on marketing. Now, that's music to my ears that you're kind of encouraging that, which is fantastic. Do you have is there like an ideal spend or ideal amount for like a dental practice to spend on marketing, or does it really depend on their situation?
It really depends. I've seen dentists in the New York area spend thousands of dollars to be in glossy high-end magazines, which caters to the New York demographic. I've seen people in more rural areas kind of invest in the more, I would say, traditional method of advertising, online, mailers, newsletters. But what I've been seeing a lot recently is a strong investment in SEO. And it's funny because I've always knew what the term SEO was, but we actually ourselves have been heavily involved in SEO recently. So, I've seen a trend of dentists really starting to invest heavily in SEO. And people are really understanding more what goes into SEO. SEO is not just a one-time thing whereby you spend a couple of dollars and you start ranking higher on the Googles and the Bings, but it's an ongoing process. You could probably speak better to it than I can, but it's an ongoing process and it takes time. But after 6 months or so, you really start to gain a little traction, and you start to see that traffic and the calls start picking up. So again, it really depends on what your appetite is, but you could, as far as cost goes, it could vary from the lower end, the old school method, to something a bit more higher end. So it really depends your target demographic and who are you trying to attract ultimately, and what's the ultimate goal.
No, that's awesome. Because I think one of the times we chatted, we talked about the fact that you've had quite a lot of dealings with marketing agencies recently, because you've had it was quite a long website process, and you kind of got stuck in.
I actually spearheaded our current and ongoing SEO project. So again, even to myself, having gone through it, I can now speak better to my clients. So when I say you need to spend more money on advertising, I can now speak better to what's involved in SEO and what goes into it and what it should cost and the timeline upon which you're going to start seeing results, and really how to kind of judge whether or not the SEO is working and you're targeting the correct demographic.
Fantastic, that's awesome. So there's no specific formula. It's not like 5% of your total revenue. It just depends on like who you're targeting, I guess how many new clients you need. Like if you're getting lots of referrals and you don't need any, then that's fine. But yeah, just sort of case by case
Correct.
basis.
Everyone's different, right? Everyone has different wants. Everyone has different needs. At the end of the day, everyone is working towards the same goal. But again, how you get to that goal is going to vary dentist by dentist, specialist by specialist, and geographic region by geographic region.
Perfect. And that's awesome, Kevin. Brilliant. And so I'd love to kind of get some success stories from your side. So have you got any stories of where you've come in and really helped a dentist kind of turn things around or grow the practice? I'd love to hear some of those stories.
So I'll speak more to the kind of acquisition side of things, and a success story we've had recently with someone who he was all gung-ho about this one practice. The numbers made sense. The location made sense to him. It checked all the boxes for him. And this is a success story in that we helped him make the right decision. However, it led him away from that ideal practice I think he had his eyes on. It was an instance where it was an older gentleman who was still working in the practice. The numbers were outstanding. Hygiene was through the roof. And again, surface level looked good. And then once we sat down with him and really got into the production and collection reports, we saw that the dentist was doing all the producing in the hygiene department. And, his attention was focused over here when it should have been over here. And, I think he was ultimately missing out on a lot of revenue because he was so entrenched in the hygiene side of the practice. And what happened was, once he went away, we ultimately found out that a lot of the clients were going to move away with him. So again, while surface level looked good, ultimately, once you got under the engine, it turned out it wasn't as ideal. So while our client moved away from it, it was a success that he didn't buy into something that, down the road would have become problematic or, not ideal for him. So again, a success could be good or it could be breaking, delivering bad news, which, hopefully in the long run will help someone.
Yeah, but that's exactly why they want you as an advisor. Like they don't want to they don't want you to say yes to everything. In fact, we've got clients that say that we're glad we work with you because you say you push back. Like the worst thing you could have said is, yeah, you should buy that because he wanted it, and then obviously then these problems would have come out the woodwork, and obviously you're not going to do that anyway because you would have negligence and all that sort of thing, do your due diligence. But yeah, you do need someone like you to say, look, no, it might look great on paper, but you should not touch this with a barge pole.
I mean, listen, sometimes we deliver bad news, or news that they don't want to hear, but sometimes that's the reality of things. And, our job as professionals is to bring that to our clients' attention, whether or not they like it or want to hear it or not. But again, in the long run, for the most part, it is typically in the best interest of our clients. So I've gotten used to being the bearer of bad news every so often.
How did the guy take it? How did the dentist take it when you said don't buy the practice of your dreams?
Listen, he took it like anyone. It's a bit of a letdown. The wind was taken out of his sails a bit, but again, he got back to it. He started looking, and he ended up with a practice he liked, and from what I understand, he's been very successful, with it. So, it was a temporary setback, but again, I think that temporary setback, it puts him further ahead down the road as to where he ultimately wanted to be, and it worked out.
Perfect, and that's awesome, Kevin. That's fantastic. So, based on the fact that you work with a lot of dentists, and you get you know their accounts, and you get involved in trying to help them grow and make better sort of decisions for the business, what would you say is like your number one piece of advice for anyone thinking about buying or starting a dental practice?
So this kind of goes back to my earlier answer. I think getting your professionals in place, getting a team around you that are both not only, well versed in the dental profession, but also those that you trust and you get along with. So the key three: a lawyer, a banker, and a CPA. They're going to be with you side by side, throughout the course of your career. And, you do interact with them a lot more than you probably think. And you want them to be people you get along with. I mean, a lot of my dental clients have become friends over the years. First they were clients and then they were friends. And at the end of the day, me as a professional, I feel more strongly motivated to work with someone I get along with and who is a friend at the end of the day, because, I want to see my friends and peers succeed. And if I can bring some small piece of that success, or I can contribute towards that success, that is the small, warm, feel good piece for me.
Fantastic. And you're right, like we spend a lot of time at work, don't we? We spend a lot of time with clients. You've got to make sure that you enjoy working with them because, why not?
Listen, you spend every week working with them. So again, it's fun to work with people you like and you enjoy and you have a pleasant relationship with. And the work really isn't work anymore. Again, it's you're working with your friends, your peers, your buddies. So it makes it that much more enjoyable.
Absolutely. You've got to have fun. And to quote a friend of mine, Glennis, you don't have to be serious about business. So you can have fun and still get results and still everyone makes money and stuff. So that's awesome. Like, Kevin, this has been fantastic. So just the final question is, if someone wants to get in touch with you, maybe learn about maybe taking on your services, or they need some advice on buying or selling a dental practice, how can they get in touch?
Sure. We're here. Easiest is my email, kevin.violick@botwinick.com. Go to our new website, botwinick.com, BOTWINICK. Again, feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help. We're a soundboard, and we'd love to talk. So.
Brilliant. Perfect, Kevin. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for persevering with the microphone. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Mike.
There's some honestly great value and some real gems in there. So looking forward to sharing with the audience. And Kevin, until the next time I speak to you, have a great day.